Hey Aaron, I wanted to show this to you. I got it all figured out, but before I take this to the machine shop, I want to show you what's going on. This is the old one, and this is the new one. And as you can see, there's a recess in this one that is not in this one. Now, in that recess is what this thrust washer bearing with the axle goes on in. So this would, you know, so now where's the light? Yeah, use your imagination. There we go. That sits there. Now, let me see if I can pause this. Okay, now then this piece sits in here. You got a bearing, the bottom, the top bearing's out right now. But that's, let's see if we do it like this. Oh! Am I still recording? You're upside down. I'll see if I can edit that out. So this is sandwiched by those two bearings, top and bottom, and that's your actual swivel. This is the axle side. Remove that. And then on this side, being the outside, this is where the stub axle goes. If you can imagine that. And then your brake rotors and everything, and the wheel bearing assembly all sits on this. Now, in that cavity sits the CV joint. And it slides on that there axle. So this thrust washer keeps it from going any further back into there. You put this in first, and then the axle slides up through that. And then the CV joint goes on. The other side of the CV joint, this part, slides into the stub axle. And then as you see, there's a brass bushing in there that it rides on. And then there's the one inside. And then there's this brass collar. So this gets sandwiched between the axle and this surface here, this brass surface. But the axle can't move back any further into the transmission because of this bushing, and it can't slide any further out this way because of the CV joint rides up against that. It doesn't need to, they're turning together, they're splined, so no brass piece or anything needs to be there. There's this little spacer washer, but it's not that little, that goes in there. Now evidently on later ones, the CV joint is longer. Get that away. and I guess it sticks out through the stub axle, and then you put shims and a circlip on it, and that's what holds the CV joint up against so that it can't pound this way, I guess. And I guess the axle has something. I haven't quite figured it all out. But the later ones, the axles don't have this collar on and don't have a raised surface here. It's just sort of smoothish the whole way, because these swivels are also on certain Discos and Defenders, and I looked up the information from them, and they don't utilize this piece, and the axle does look different. It's shaped differently. So I'm thinking that the later CV joints with the shims that you have to set the end floater on and everything precludes the need for the axle to be pounding around a little bit and doesn't need to have that surface. But evidently they only replace this part with this part now. And so I took some measurements, and I'm going to take this up to Barry Over's today, actually, I hope, and get that cut down a little bit. The interesting part is that wasn't a simple job of measuring the depth of that and transferring that, because some of the other dimensions in the ball are different too. So I utilized some flat stock here and took measurements, but then that's on an angle, the bearing surfaces. So, I had to measure a couple of spots and try to get some repeatability till I got something that I was comfortable with. Compared that with a couple of other techniques of measuring the distances. But I also did put it. Another thing is that the cutout, the clearancing in the old one is much more generous than in the new one. So I did put it all together, because this would be in there like that, and that would be what the clearancing is for, so that this has all the movement it needs. And I did put it all together, sans the actual axle, so that this was floating around, and there's plenty of room for that to move around. So I know that the binding wasn't the clearancing aspect. It's just that surface in the back. So just wanted to fill you in on that. Gonna take this up, drop it off hopefully yet today, and then we're just waiting for him to get it back to me. Okay, take it easy. Have a happy New Year.